Nebraska gets 15 more practices added to its schedule after Friday.
That's a legit thing that could happen. So, not a pipe dream at all.
No pipe?
It is a pipe dream. Sorry.
Okay, foreshadowing for the show.
I agree with Matt.
Could murder Jed.
I think they're going to do it.
45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. He's going to go. Holy cow.
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better. He gets better and better. Team is JPP. Oh, man, woman, and child, he just turned this stadium inside out.
We have another guest with us this week. Some of you might know him. Some of you might have heard him on the show last year at some point, or in the offseason at some
It
point.
was the off-season, yeah.
Vegas, or as some weird people like to call him, Steve Lacombe. What's up, man?
Chilling, man. Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it. Good to be back on, guys.
It's always fun to, well, first of all, you're a kind of a college football junkie nerd just like the rest of us, but you're a Nebraska hater a bit. And you grew up here, but you're a Notre Dame fan. You like to kind of squirt the lime juice in the eye of the Nebraska fans every once in a while. Mm-hmm. And so it's fun to get an outsider's perspective on things. So thanks for joining us, man.
Bet.
I did not ask you this last time. Do you remember the first time that you ever went to a Notre Dame game? What was your first memory that made you a Notre Dame fan?
My dad was a fan.
Okay.
He grew up on the East Coast. Back then, if you're a Catholic, you followed Notre Dame football. That's just the way it was.
Followed the money.
You followed the money, yep. So he was a fan. They kind of rubbed off on me, and that's just
Was it
how
like a
it came
priest
to.
thing?
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to.
I almost went there.
You already went the Catholic direction. I had to.
I almost went there.
I'm still sore from that.
Oh, jeez.
Physically.
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez.
It only hurt for a little bit.
What kind of
All right.
podcast is this?
And
Jesus
moving
Christ.
on. Moving on. I know you've been to a Nebraska game in Lincoln. What was your first Nebraska game that you can remember?
To be honest with you, BJ, my first Nebraska game was at Notre Dame.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was my first Nebraska game. Went to back-to-back games, went to the one in South Bend, followed it up in Lincoln.
Was this the ones in the 2000s?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
You had never been to a Nebraska game before that?
No.
Wow.
No, I stand corrected. I've never been to a home Nebraska game. I did go to the Nebraska-Missouri game that was in Columbia. It was the game in Columbia was the game before the kick. So it was 2 years before the kick.
So like 96?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Too bad you weren't at the kick game. You might have been a Nebraska fan after that.
No. I was financially vested the other direction
got it.
on a money line. So,
Oh, shit.
yeah.
Well, the fun thing for me when we bring you in is you know a shit ton about just all of college football in general. You're probably it's you and Jed 1A and 1B for me of like just general college football knowledge across the board. So I wanted to start off by asking a couple things about how we think the playoffs going to shake out. We just saw Georgia leap. This is Tuesday night. We just saw Georgia leap Ohio State in the CFP rankings. How do you guys think that shakes out?
Well, and also Washington jumped over Florida State to be number 4.
Oh, I totally missed that, actually.
Florida State went down to 5.
Jesus. Losing that quarterback, man, that's huge.
They said it was a resume thing because of Washington beating Oregon State last week, which is accurate as far as Washington having a better resume than Florida State. But we all know that the quarterback situation had something to do with that as well, because the playoff committee has said multiple times they take into account also injuries and how the team is going to be.
If you're going to look and try and make the absolute best teams out there win, it can't be about, it's not fair because whatever. Like, if you lose the most integral piece of your offense, you're not as competitive as you were.
I kind of go back and forth on it, though, because the purpose of the playoff, whether it's the football one or college basketball or whatever else, it should be based on what you did during the season. I agree with that completely. So in that aspect, the injury should not bear any factor because what Florida State has done throughout this season. But at the same time, you got to be realistic.
Also, it should be and what it is. Like, they base it on who are the best 4 teams.
Exactly.
They don't necessarily base it on just your record or what you did during the season.
I mean, there's a lot of factors. I'm just saying, I can't blame them for factoring injuries into it, but at the same time, there's a part of me that says you should still just go off what they did during the season, and injuries shouldn't play a factor. So I kind of go both ways on that aspect of it.
Well, thinking about what they did during the season, does Washington have a narrow victory over a really dog shit team like Boston College the way that Florida State does?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. It was right after the Oregon game. Who did they play? They only won like 15-7 or something like that.
Yeah, I believe they struggled
Like
with
after the Oregon game, they had like
Yeah.
2 straight weeks of really struggling.
yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And that was what I was wondering, because that to me was one
Arizona
of those,
State. They struggled with Arizona State.
Is Arizona State as bad as Boston College though?
Yeah,
Arizona State's bad.
Boston College is bowl eligible. They're going to finish in the middle of the pack of the ACC. They're an up and down team too. Like I said, they've struggled with teams barely beating some teams they shouldn't, but they lost to some teams they shouldn't. Where Arizona State there's 3 wins.
And then
That's
the week
fair.
and then the week after that game, they let Stanford score 33 points on
Yeah.
them.
Which was way more of a game than it should have been.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was 2 games.
Wasn't that Washington Stanford game the one where they were up by it was 30-0, and then Stanford came roaring back in the second half?
No, it was Colorado.
That's the Colorado game.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
but Stanford played the entire game. I thought at one time that Stanford was going to win that game. So
They were within a couple points of being up in the third.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a close game.
So yeah, they did struggle after that Oregon game, but they've
Well, that
kinda
makes me
started
feel a little
picking
bit
back
better
up a
about
little
it then.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you said, you lose your most integral piece of your offense. I don't know how you expect to be as competitive.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot of that this weekend when they play Florida. Regardless of Florida's ups and downs this year, they've played good teams tough. But it also sounds like they're also going to be without their quarterback. So who the fuck knows?
And it being a rivalry game.
We're talking about Graham Mertz, not
Yeah.
what's
Although
his name
Graham
for
Mertz has
Florida
played
State.
really well this year, so
After the first couple weeks, yeah, he's really turned it on.
Yeah.
Doesn't look anything like the Wisconsin Graham Mertz.
no.
Different offense.
Very different offense. Very different offense. Well, that being said, let's jump on in to Mr. Pipe or No Pipe.
Pipe or no pipe?
Ohio State blows out Michigan this weekend. Jed?
Blows out, that's a pipe dream. I think Ohio State wins, though.
Yeah, that's a big pipe. That's going to be a really fucking fun game to watch. And nobody's blowing anybody out. I also think Ohio State wins, but it's going to be close.
That's is that a pipe dream? If it's an untrue, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a pipe dream. I agree with you guys. I think that's going to be a great game to watch. I personally think since it's at Michigan, I know Harbaugh's not on the sidelines, but he's implementing the game plan.
Mm-hmm.
He's putting everything. And I said this.
And they have a lot of experience without him being on the sideline this year.
They started the season out the same way.
Yeah, they did. And in my opinion, like 2 years ago when he finally got over the hump and beat Ryan Day, I said that he will never lose to that guy again. And I
remember you saying that.
Yeah, I think Michigan beats him, but in a close game. So
Pipe or no pipe?
Nebraska finishes this weekend with no turnovers. Matt?
If Chuba plays the whole game, I'd say there's a chance. So small pipe.
Vegas?
small pipe.
Gigantic pipe. John Holmes pipe. Yeah, no.
Jesus.
We've only done
Holmes.
it once this year, and we're not going to do it again. So no.
Pipe or no pipe?
Nebraska has 2 passing touchdowns this Friday. Vegas?
Pipe.
Pipe dream it is.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fatter pipe than the 0 turnovers.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
That's the equal size pipe because I was only allowed more than 1 touchdown in a game once this year, and we've only done it twice.
Fair enough.
So you don't even care that they're passing. We're not going to score
No.
2 touchdowns.
Not 2, no.
Pipe or no pipe?
Nebraska has Nebraska scores 20-plus points in this game. Jed?
Small to medium-sized pipe. I don't think we're going to get that much because Iowa's scoring defense is really fucking good.
Pipe dream. It's gonna be like 6-3,
Yeah.
or 3-2, or 2-0.
Yep.
Like it's gonna be the most Iowa score
If
ever.
we lose 2-0, that'd be the most embarrassing football game.
If we win 2-0, I will fucking take it.
Yeah, it's a pipe. 20 points against Iowa, it's tough to do.
Pipe or no pipe.
Nebraska gets 15 more practices added to its schedule after Friday.
That's a legit thing that could happen. So not a pipe dream at all.
No pipe?
It is a pipe dream. Sorry.
Okay, foreshadowing for the show.
I agree with Matt.
Murder Jed.
I think they're going to do it.
Okay.
I think they're going to do it.
I'm pretty excited about it. I personally, when I look at this year and this Iowa team this year, and I compare it to and contrast it to the Iowa team from last year, and I look at the Nebraska teams and I look at them both ways, I think we had a more talented and more connected quarterback and wide receiver duo, but everything else is better this year than it was last year. So it's tough for me to look at this and say we were able to get up on them and do the things we were able to do to them last year when I think that they were just as good, if not a better defense. And they have less of an offense this year. So I feel like it's very much
Wait, you said everything about Nebraska is better than last year?
everything except for the quarterback wide receiver tandem.
Okay. So basically the passing game.
Yeah, I would say that.
Just
but I'm
making sure.
specifically talking about Trey Palmer and who Jed thinks shall not be named, Casey Thompson.
Yeah, I'd like to
I
add
wasn't the one that you. Every time I brought him up, you're like, I don't want to hear his name anymore. So don't put that on me.
I just think that Nebraska has more to play for.
Way more to play for.
Way more to.
Iowa's season's already set.
Yeah, they're set. They essentially they know what two bowls they may play in, unless they hypothetically, or it's a pipe dream, win the Big Ten championship game. So they know where they're going.
They were celebrating and popping champagne last week.
Yep.
That would be a big pipe dream.
They do. They'll be resting guys. They'll be.
Kurt Ferentz was crying on the sidelines because they made the Big Ten championship game.
Well,
I think it had more to do with winning his son's last home game, but I get you.
Either way,
it might be his last home game.
You think Kirk's?
Yeah, I think it might be. It might be.
Wow. Well, we're going to get into Iowa here shortly. Wanted to get out of the way with the pipe or no pipe. I do want to get into a little bit more of the games that are coming up this weekend that are not Nebraska. Who's Notre Dame got coming?
Stanford.
That's not going to be much of a game.
No.
Or shouldn't be.
well, I don't know. They played the Huskies pretty well.
And Colorado. Don't forget about that Colorado game.
No, we'll take care of business, I think.
Are you guys healthy at this point? I haven't
Yeah.
watched the last few weeks for you.
We lost our tight end mid-season, torn ACL, but we're getting guys back at tight end that are just filling in just fine. But our receiver crew's healthy. Our offensive line, they just reload there, so I'm not concerned about that. Defense is real healthy, led by Omaha's own Xavier Watts.
Dude, he's killing it this year for you guys.
I was at the USC.
Did I see going in? Maybe it was going in 2 weeks ago, but was it going into last week? He was leading the country in interceptions.
Yeah, I think he still does.
Jesus.
Yeah,
What it would mean to have him back there for us.
yeah. I was at the USC game and he had 2 interceptions. Oh, I was at the Pitt game. He had 2 interceptions. Yeah, he's a stud.
So you're a good luck charm for him?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I
Bring a
guess.
little Omaha love up there
I was
for
yelling
him?
Omaha every time he picks. People are looking at me funny. I'm
It's like, he's not fucking Peyton Manning. Why are you screaming Omaha?
yeah, yeah.
Don't you know a little bit of the backstory as to why he wound up in Notre Dame and not Nebraska? Or am I thinking of somebody else?
I'm not sure. I know Nebraska offered him. I just think he was impressed with the visit. I mean,
Well, nobody was impressed by anything when Scott Frost was trying.
yeah, no,
He wasn't even visiting kids.
no.
Was it not in Omaha?
Yeah.
Because he's a Burke guy, right?
He's a Burt guy. I think Brian Kelly went to 2 of his games, high school games. So,
Jesus. How
he really
embarrassing is that you can get Brian Kelly from Notre Dame out to Omaha to see a game, but Scott Frost wouldn't go and visit him during the school day?
Yeah.
But he had a golden tea time.
Notre Dame also just seems to have a slight tap into the Omaha market when it comes to kids, because isn't the West Side quarterback going to Notre Dame now too?
Well, he's got a preferred walk-on offer.
And
his brother goes there, too.
But Notre
His
Dame's
brother's
been in
there.
the Nebraska market for a long time because they're going after Carter Nelson. They got him up there for another visit. Doesn't seem to have rattled him too much, but
He was at the USC game.
yeah, he was at the USC game. I heard he turned down talking with who's your coach again?
Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, he turned down a visit with Marcus Freeman the next day. Said he enjoyed everything about it, but didn't have any interest in talking to the head coach, which to me is a pretty strong signal. But
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard anything on the Notre Dame side.
No, it's just the fact that he was at the USC game. Yeah, there was this talk on their boards, but like I said, I don't think it's going to materialize. We've got some tight ends on our radar that we're pursuing, and plus our tight end room is pretty full. So we've got all three guys coming back from next year. So
Nice. Well, there you have it, folks. He's not going to Notre Dame. You can calm down.
no,
I don't
Straight
know.
from Vegas, the
I
insider.
don't know too many people that were really that worried about it, to be completely
I don't know,
honest.
man. The message boards and everything were going nuts
Yeah,
for the
cool
whole 2
message
weeks.
boards. Message boards also thought that Rhule had an interview with another team. So
Hey, we don't know
you-
if he did or didn't.
if you have
Yes, we
available,
do.
if you have available visits, you take them.
Yes.
it's a
Why
free
not?
trip.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a great environment to go see a rivalry game. Why wouldn't you go?
Well,
You know?
and why wouldn't you go? Well, I mean, that's one of the more iconic places to go see a game.
Yeah.
It's kind of like visiting Wrigley or any of those. Like
Well,
it's
it's funny that you say that. So when I was there during that weekend, the game was at a night game. We were tailgating at an Irish bar. There were a lot of fans that just came to Notre Dame to go to the game. We ran into a couple guys that are Michigan guys. Like, why are you here?
Well, Michigan has guys at every game.
No, but for real.
they were prepping for the college football playoff just in case you
Yeah.
guys got in.
Yeah.
was one of them named Connor?
That's fucking
No.
hilarious.
There were Michigan guys. This is legit. There were Michigan guys at the Minnesota game when we were there too.
Yeah. Well,
That is fucking hilarious.
yeah. But we ran into some guys from East Carolina. The guy, this is a funny shirt. He was wearing a because they were playing USC. He had a picture of Reggie Bush pushing Matt Leinart, and it says "I push hard." It was hilarious. Oh my God. So he was probably trying to stir the pot, but he had a good time talking. But there's a lot of people just come for that game. But so why wouldn't you come if you've got visits to take? I would.
Yeah,
That's a
absolutely.
great environment to go see a game. So
Yeah.
hey, I wouldn't be threatened by it.
But speaking of Michigan, they've got a pretty fucking big game going on this weekend. I mean, I personally, I was letting you guys know, and I've kind of let this be known since the preseason. I think Ohio State is the team to beat in the country this year, not just in the conference. And so I personally, I do think Ohio State handles business this week. I think Ryan Day probably does another spouting off, kind of like he did after the Notre Dame win, and kind of embarrasses himself a little bit, maybe on camera. But I think that's just who he is. He's a little bit of a passionate guy, and he kind of lets that out occasionally. But they just seem like a more complete team than what I've seen from Michigan. Michigan looks like they are, like when they played, the way they played Maryland last week, they looked very in control for the first 10 to 15 minutes of that game, and then it just slowly slipped away on them. It felt very much like their discipline and the things that they needed to learn from playing closer, tougher games more than one time all season is just not there. And then you add on to it that your head coach is not on the sideline, and he hasn't been on the sideline for basically half the games you played this year. Those are some
literally
big factors.
after Saturday, it will be half their games.
Yeah, and those are some big factors I think that people don't think about, especially if it turns into a late game, clock management end game scenario where the head coach is usually the one making those big decisions, kind of like what we've talked about with Matt Rhule the last couple of weeks, and it's not being very happy with those. I think those are the types of situations where they're going to miss Harbaugh. Personally, I don't think it's going to come down to that. I think Ohio State probably wins this. I would feel comfortable saying I would take a spread of Ohio State minus 5.5 in this game. That's just me. What do you guys think?
I don't think Ohio State is the team to beat in the country. I think it's going to remain Georgia until somebody proves me otherwise.
That's fair.
It seems like when Georgia needs to turn it on, they do, and they just fucking take care of business.
They looked so vulnerable for the first 6 to 8 games of this season.
Looked bored.
And then the last 2 or 3 weeks, they're just like, oh, shit.
As their schedule kind of kicked up a notch, they did too.
Yeah.
Somebody serviced the wood chipper, and it's back to chopping at full bore.
And I know that wasn't the question, but I just wanted to make sure that was said.
That's fair.
Georgia's the team. But a close second is Ohio State. They're good everywhere this year.
I think it's funny with Ohio State. So they've got a dominant defense. They've got the best wide receiver that we've seen in a long time.
Which is crazy to say when you think about the other wide receivers just to come out of that school.
Yeah. They've got a very good running back as long as he can stay healthy. And the only knock on the Ohio State team is they trash their quarterback. But realistically, he's playing well. It's just that he's not this dynamic quarterback that they've seen at Ohio State.
I'd take their quarterback.
I would take a quarterback.
Of course, we're Nebraska fans. We take any quarterback.
I'd just take a quarterback, yeah.
We think we might have one.
But it's just kind of funny that's the thing that everybody trashes Ohio State for. They don't trust the quarterback. It's he's playing really well. He's playing. I don't even want to use the word game manager, but when you have that talent around you, that's all you got to do.
Yeah. That's and I compared him to Georgia's quarterback.
Yeah.
He's a game manager.
Yeah.
Look at what Georgia's done the last 2 years with their quarterbacks.
Just don't
They're
make
not
mistakes.
dynamic playmakers.
Yeah, Georgia has one of the best tight ends probably ever to play college football. Mm-hmm. He's got a possession receiver in McConkey. Ohio State's loaded at receiver. They probably have 2 of the top 4 receivers in the country on one team.
And they've had that for 6 years.
Yeah.
He needs to protect the ball is all he needs to do.
Yeah. You're right. And that's where I think the game plan for Michigan might affect them because I think they're going to come after him a little bit. And they've got good enough cornerbacks to make them honest. And I go back to the Notre Dame game when we played them. Literally, we have a really good, he's a sophomore, but he was a freshman All-American. He essentially shut down Harrison Jr. He had one catch. But
Harrison Jr. was still working back from injury at that point, though, right?
Harrison Jr.'s played every game.
Yeah.
I know he's played every game, but he was not up to.
No, he got injured
100%
in our game.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
He got injured in the third quarter, but the other guy is the guy that hurt us. So I don't know.
Well, it's kind of like if you watch the Vikings. Everybody else other than Justin Jefferson feasts.
Yeah,
he somehow finds a way to get his catches in, but everyone else looks better because he's getting all the attention.
Yeah, and that's what happens. And in my opinion, it depends on what game plan Harbaugh implements. It's all about execution. Does he have to be on the sideline? To make it happen? Not necessarily.
No, and he's got great coordinators.
He's got great coordinators, and he's got great assistant coaches, and it'll be interesting. I don't take too much. I don't read into the Maryland game so much because a lot of that were they really prepping for Maryland? They were just probably going through the motions.
Do you really think they were looking ahead, though? You're going to look ahead when you don't have your head coach on the sideline?
Yeah, I do.
Jesus.
I
don't know. Maybe they are that good. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like you don't get a much better game plan to prep for this year's Ohio State team than if you just watch front to back the Penn State-Ohio State game. That was a really good game. You could kind of say the same thing about Notre Dame. I didn't feel like – because Ohio State didn't have their running back in that game, and they didn't seem as dynamic offensively in the Notre Dame game as they did in the Penn State game. Penn State's defense seemed like they were super disruptive. They got back there in the backfield quickly and a lot. I feel like they're going to have to do that in order for Michigan to even have a shot in this game.
No, I agree.
Otherwise, he's going to stand back there and pick them apart. And he's going to dink and dunk. He doesn't hit a lot of long balls on him, but you don't have to when you've got the guys catching the ball that he does.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What do you think the game winds up, Jed?
I think Ohio State's going to beat them. Mainly. I will be brutally honest.
You were the other one in the preseason that was picking Ohio State possibly to win it all.
I had them in the playoff, yeah. Some of it is I hope that they beat him because I fuck Michigan, but but I do, like I said, dominant defense, and I know Michigan has a dominant defense as well. But the offensive weapons that Ohio State has Michigan does not have those guys, especially I don't know how hurt Roman Wilson is because he didn't play last week. I don't know if he's going to be good to go for this Ohio State game. I haven't really looked into it that far. And he's their stud wide receiver for Michigan. I'm not a believer in J.J. McCarthy. So I'm
not either. I think
I
he's
would
a
take
great
Ohio
game
State's
manager.
I would take Ohio State's quarterback over J.J. McCarthy. I just think that Ohio State is a better team. I know too many people in my mind have been saying all year, eye test, Michigan's the best team in the country. It's like, oh, I don't know.
Based on who they've played,
I know.
though. I mean,
That's-
fuck, they haven't played anybody.
That's kind of my thing, but
They haven't played
I know ultimately
anybody.
you can
It's
only
crazy.
play the teams on your schedule. I get it, but if you're going to be considered the best team in the country by far, which a lot of people have said, they should be killing fools.
Yes.
And they haven't been.
Shutting teams like Maryland down.
Yeah.
Not letting them creep around and make it a one-score game in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
That's my biggest thing about that. I don't think Ohio State's defense is as elite as Michigan's, but I think just when you look at the playmakers across the board, the point you made about Georgia and their quarterbacks, that's kind of what I feel about Michigan. They just don't have the other playmakers around him. I don't think their two running backs have looked nearly as dynamic as they have. I mean, you've talked about it so many times in the last 4 or 5 weeks. How the fuck is Nebraska still leading the Big Ten in rushing?
No clue.
When you've got a dual threat or a two-headed monster in the backfield at Michigan behind that Michigan offensive line. Mm-hmm. What's going on? Is it play calling? Is it them just not being as adept as they have been in the past? Nobody knows. Defenses are pretty good in the Big Ten this year. Not a lot of good offenses, but it's I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be a game I'm watching.
Yes.
Excited about it. Yep.
That's going to be relaxation. Thursday all day, go, go, go. Nebraska game on Friday. Hopefully it'll be a reason to celebrate. And Saturday will be like, cool, hungover watching Michigan State or Michigan and Ohio State at 11 a.m. Sounds good to me.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.